Also, you should have got a tweet. Tweet should have went out too.
All right, I'll go ahead and retweet that.
This is Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty. Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty.
All I gotta say, SpaceTomato, is fumble fingers. That's what happens when you have too many buttons to push.
I get it, man. I do that all the time.
Oh my God. Welcome everybody to Soul Voices. I'm Griffin Gaming RPG, and it is my pleasure to be back with you on a Saturday afternoon. And it's an even greater pleasure to be back with a good friend of ours, the man himself, SpaceTomato. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's crazy times, but I am doing as well as can be right now.
Well, speaking of crazy times, what time is it over there? You're in Turkey right now, right?
Yes,
So
yes, I am, and it is 10 o'clock. We just hit the good old 10 o'clock Saturday night.
10 o'clock.
Ready for the party.
This is awesome. As always, I truly appreciate you finding time to hang out with us. I know that it's very difficult for us to get people who may be in Europe or Germany. We've even had one of our good people, Shiver Bathory, who's in Japan. And man, you guys always have to either be on at 5 a.m. in the morning or 1 a.m. in the morning. And we don't want you to think that it's lost on us that you guys are doing it, because this is evening and I'm sure the baby's in bed, but it's still evening. So thanks for being here with us, man. We really appreciate it.
Hey, it goes both ways, man. I try to get you onto the show, and I know like it'll be the morning of a Friday or something where normally people are at work. So I appreciate it both ways. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and of course, when you're in the U.S., we always try to snatch you up. So again, thanks for being here today. Listen, folks, as you guys know, for our Soul Voices show, this is our one-on-one conversation where you get to come in and talk with us. You get to talk with me. You get to talk to SpaceTomato directly and share your thoughts on the topics that we bring. And normally, we bring our topics from Spectrum, Reddit, and the gaming industry, still talking about Star Citizen, but just gaming and stuff. But today we're doing a very special show because, as most of you know, most of you are fans of Star Citizen and Squadron 42. And as you guys know, next week is CitizenCon 2952, something that many of us are looking forward to. So we've kind of oriented the questions and conversation today to be about that. I've watched Space for quite a while, and I really... he's somebody I admire. He came into the game much later than a lot of the other folks out here, but he's also very quickly made himself knowledgeable of Star Citizen. He has a different perspective. He's not like us old guys with dust over us. He has a fresh attitude toward it, and he could be more critical than I am. I'm a little bit more forgiving. I'm an old man. He's got the energy I would have had 20 years ago, and so I like his perspective, that he is very positive and supportive of the project, but also from a gaming standpoint, he talks about things that he sees as a perspective in this. Tomato, you've talked to me before about MMOs in this particular genre. This was something kind of a whole new thing for you, right? I just want to give the folks who don't know you a little bit of background, right?
Yeah. So you did say I was new, but I think I dodged a bullet because I did back in 2014, but I didn't really get into the game, until And this is the first MMO I've ever tried out. I mean, I played like Phantasy Star Online very briefly when it was on console. I had no idea what I was getting into. Really, it was just kind of me and my friends were messing around trying new games. But I was never a big fan of MMOs, and that's not what brought me to Star Citizen. It was actually more the setting and the idea of the game itself.
Okay. And now you've been streaming now for how long have you been streaming now?
I started streaming in 2020, probably like when tons of people started streaming, right? Everybody, that first half of 2020 when everybody got locked into their homes and we were all looking for new things to do.
Yeah, that was kind of our thing too. We came in literally it was March of 2019 and COVID kicked in February, you know what I mean? And so it was just kind of weird that the timing that we came in was also the same month when everybody all of a sudden had to stay home, and try to find stuff to do. And Twitch obviously was something that a lot of people that maybe under any other circumstances they couldn't watch, now they had time to sit around and watch gaming stuff. So anyway, we're going to jump into this, and as I mentioned, because CitizenCon is next week, we've kind of geared the conversations today around CitizenCon. You guys are going to see a link that's going to pop up in chat from time to time. That link is what you can click on to come into our green room, into our queue. And if you have a top or an idea that you want to share with us in regards to the subjects that we talk about today, we would love to hear from you. You guys hear from me every week. We want to hear from SpaceTomato, but we want to hear from you because this is our community show. So be ready to click on that link if you're interested in coming in and talk to us. And those of you who are in YouTube, that link should already be there right below the screen for you if you want to come in. So let's kick off our very first thing. As you guys know, we kind of hit some questions when we kick this whole thing off when we get started. This one I did pull from Spectrum Tomato, so I want to read it and then we can kind of get into the conversation and talk about it. This person's was Not Sure 77, and they said the title of their post was CitizenCon Mini-Me version. Which was interesting. He actually had a picture of Mini-Me with the finger in his mouth and everything on the post, which is kind of crazy. But this is what they said. I'm not complaining. Yes, I'm complaining. Well, I'm not sure. I don't understand why CitizenCon is not important any longer for CIG. Now, that's all the person said. Nothing more than that. And it has been interesting that I have heard this, Tomato, a little bit where people have kind of felt like, for lack of a better way of putting it, that CitizenCon has gone down, that it's not what it used to be. And I find that kind of interesting because on the other side of the coin, there were people who used to say that CIG was overhyping CitizenCon and doing too much. And so you followed this project for a while. My first CitizenCon, I watched them in 2015 and 16. I was at 2016. And I remember it was a big deal, right? It was a really big deal.
Yeah.
But I also remember that something changed between those early CitizenCons where there was a lot of, how can I say this? It was like Chris was showing us, this is what we want to do, right? This is the vision that we have. And then over the last few years, including because of COVID, it's been more about, this is where we are and this is what we have done. And this is the next step. You know what I mean? The freaking sandworm in 2016, people got their minds blown. But if you know the game, if you know the game, and mind you, I'm not listening, I ain't trying to defend CIG. I'm just speaking truth here. When that video first started, in the bottom left corner, it said Lear 3. It didn't say Stanton.
Yeah.
Right.
Which was a weird system to choose on the other side of what they.
Yeah. Maybe that's why, right? because they knew it was going to be down
They were
the
like,
road,
we don't have to do this now. Yeah.
Right. But we, of course, we're all affected by Dune, right? And we're affected by Star Wars. We saw the Sand People, right? We saw all this cool stuff that resonated, which from a marketing standpoint, right, from a company, if you want to get folks on board, yeah. But the reality of it was we weren't going to see that for a while. And so a lot of people kind of thought that, that was October of 2016, that by October 2017, we'd be seeing that sandworm floating around. And guess what? No sandworm, right? And even now in 2022, people still post about, we still don't have the sandworm. So let me ask you this question and put this to you first to get your thoughts. And then we're going to see anybody who wants to come in and talk. We already got a couple people waiting in the queue to talk to us about this. Do you feel that CitizenCon is no longer important? I mean, do you feel that the way this person says it, they say that, it doesn't seem it's important to CIG. That's what they say.
I want to start first by talking about the sandworm. Because I have been, so I do videos for my supporters every month, and the video that I'm doing for September, I say doing because I actually haven't gotten it released yet. Sorry, guys. But the one I'm doing for September is a complete history of CitizenCon. So I take a look at every year, what they did, and kind of how the event progressed. And that the sandworm whole thing, and I was reviewing it, I didn't even realize originally, but they promoted that video. They launched that whole thing as a demo of Planet Tech.
Right.
And in the entire time they were introducing it, they never once said this is a gameplay demo or this is focused on the demo. They were only focusing on the aspect that they're showing off the planet. So what they did, it seems, is they wrapped it up in something that was very fancy and cool to see. And Chris talked about the gameplay, and it distracted from the fact that it was about the Planet Tech and not everything else that was going on. I think that was a big mistake because that got people very hooked on the gameplay. But CitizenCon itself as an event, I mean, the idea that it's losing importance or potency or just altogether falling apart rings echoes of the conversation surrounding E3, in my opinion. And that E3 is something that in the 2000s, it was amazing. It was just the absolute most hyped thing in the gaming industry. Every single year, you would see amazing demos. All the companies were coming, and there was no other way to get news, right? It was all print. It was very, very rarely blog websites, GameSpot, IGN, Game Radar, all these different things. And so E3 was super, super in vogue. But over time, it started to lose that pizzazz. And at this point, we haven't had a physical E3 in a while. And it kind of has lost that spirit a little bit, and people are a little disappointed about it. But the fact is, it still retains its importance in the industry. It is still a place for news, a place for information, even if it's not flashy and fancy. Companies and industry professionals still know that if even the event isn't happening, that is a time in the year when news is going to come out. Events or things are going to be announced, whether it's the Summer Games Fest that has now started up, Microsoft and PlayStation doing their own things outside of E3. You just know that time is the time for the info. And CitizenCon is the same way. No matter what happens to this event, it's the anniversary. It's the important time of the year when they can drop big pieces of news. And even if it's not flashy, fancy, there's no keynote, it's still a really, really important time for especially players who can't follow along regularly to come in and see what's going on with the game. It's that annual checkup. And I think that's what CIG should be focusing on with it. Because before these last 2 years, players couldn't hop into the game and experience that it's actually something to be played, right? So they needed CitizenCon to bump up that marketing, get people interested, show people what they could be doing. But now you give them a free fly, get them in the game, and show them what's already there right now.
So do you see CIG, because you just said something I want to go back to a second, do you see it almost as like an annual report for the public?
I think that's what it should be.
Okay.
I think they still kind of, they lean on it a little bit. The keynote's still there. Sometimes it's still very heavy theory crafting. I think there was one panel last year. It was the systemic gameplay, I think it was called, that was just full-on conversation. They didn't show anything like they did with Gen 12 or server meshing. So it was very clearly still kind of a hype piece, but it seems like over the years they're moving more and more towards that idea of kind of an information dense annual update.
Okay. All right, look, we got some people waiting for us. I'm gonna bring them in. They piled in.
Cool.
Holy smoke!
Cool.
I'm gonna start out with the senior man in the group here, who's always first in every week. That's Pops in Space. Pops, you there?
Hey, yes, I am.
How are you, man? You're here with
I'm fine, thank
SpaceTomato,
you.
man. Yeah.
Yes.
Good to see you, Pops.
Yeah, Pops.
Yes, good to see you.
Give us your thoughts about this thing about is CitizenCon? Is it no longer important for CIG? What do you think?
Well, first I want to say to Space, beautiful picture. I saw it the other day, you and the wife. Good to see it.
Thank you.
Looking good.
Thank you, man.
All right. Okay. Now, what was the question again? I got lost in that.
All you gotta do is look at the screen, Pops. That's no problem.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm a gamer, but I don't read. I don't read.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
You don't got to read to be good at games.
Yeah, this person is just basically saying, I don't understand why CitizenCon is not important any longer for CIG. Do you think that CIG is losing some steam about, or do you think that maybe people are just disinterested in it, or do you think that CitizenCon is important?
I think it's important, and I'm going to kind of take a little bit, because we watched it last year. I'm taking a little bit from GG, and we were all sitting there, and we were in there, and we were just, oh, look at that! Oh, look at that grass! Look at the clouds! And GG said, you can tell y'all are nerds because y'all are just happy about grass. And yes, we were. It's a good look. It's a good look. It gets you hyped to see what's going on, what work they're doing. Mm-hmm. It just elevated me. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be at this year's one. This would have been my first time. But I understand, safety first and all of that. But no, I think they're great events. I've never been to any kind of a Gamescom before. But the hype is real. Okay. The hype is real for me.
Okay.
So.
All right. Awesome. All right, Pops. Thank you, man.
Okay.
Appreciate you as always. Pops is a good guy. All right. We're going to bring in Red Bear 1. Red Bear 1, you there? Red Bear?
Yeah, hello.
There he is. Hey, say hi to SpaceTomato.
Yeah, about the same time zone as SpaceTomato at the moment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Late at night.
Yeah, it's 9 and 9:15, I mean.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Well, we all know that we had like a lot of these events, like Gamescom in Germany. Later on, we had this CitizenCon, and then after that, we had this other event. They said in somewhat years, they said like, well, we're going to consolidate this to one event. So we have more time to push out more content, or at least be more busy with our work instead of making demos. That was the consensus back then. I think that was a good move, in my opinion. The only drawback I found was, we see the interaction between the developers and the people who went there physically less. Yeah. That's what I missed, and people also was it last year or year before that one? People said like, well, we were disappointed in the digital event, but I think the interaction between the developers and the backers were lacking, was not there because it was a pre-recorded event. Yeah, and that's what we were missing. It was actually the same event, but no interaction between us and the developers.
Let me touch on something that you're saying there in space. I know you haven't had a chance to go, but I went in 2016 and I went in 2018, and 2016, as most people know, was the year that they considered the big disappointment year. It was the year where we were expecting to hear about Squadron 42. But there were many of us who came back from 2016 and said 2016 was awesome because the time we spent with other people. That was the deal. Sure, we were disappointed, but I didn't feel like the trip was wasted because, to be honest with you, and Fast Carter said this before, 50%, maybe 60% of my fun time that I had was getting to see people like a SpaceTomato, like a gray-headed gamer, Captain Richard, talking to people, barbecues that were afterward, the bar citizen that ran till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. that was great because back then in 2016, CitizenCon only lasted 3 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
But now in 2018, it became more of a full day thing, and that changed the dynamic. So I agree with you, Red Baron. I think that, and I'm not saying this is what this person is saying, but I will say this: if you've been to a CitizenCon, what has been disappointing, even though as SpaceTomato said they still have it and we get to get the information pack, the emptiness for me is the fact that all these people that I talk to on Discord or in channels or forums, I don't get to interact with them, and CIG staff and people. Because when you go to that Bar Citizen on Friday night, they are there from when we start to when we all go home. And you might sit there and get to talk to a dev for 4 hours that normally you get to get a 6-minute clip on ISC. You know what I mean? You literally can go up to Brian Chambers and have a beer with him and talk. You know, you can sit down with Disco. You can do all these things at those events. And that to me is what makes, you know, Space, it kind of makes it tangible. You know what I'm saying? Amongst all of the talk and everything else, you realize these are real people that really do care about this project. They're not there because somebody's paid them and say, hey, you need to show up at this. The passion that they have and the dedication, it actually reinforces it for me as a player to say, hey, these jokers are really serious and they know what they're doing. So that is important. I think you're right, Red Baron.
It's also very nice to see you have like people with very spontaneous questions about the game and that sort of stuff. And that's not what you can get with a pre-recorded event.
Yes, absolutely.
Like they did a year or so ago.
Yeah.
I hope they will return to the interaction between the backers and the developers. And that will be a lot better. I think people will be more pleased to have it like this.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Red Baron. Always good to hear you, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for coming on.
Too,
yeah. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I cut him off too quickly. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
I got the message.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He mentions a good point because one of the things that does happen at those, when we have those different sessions, is that they always leave room at the end for you to ask these spontaneous questions that they respond to. And I think I can't remember a time where somebody asked a question and said, we can't talk about that. You know, people who are there kind of know the parameters of what they can ask about, you know what I'm saying? And they usually expound on those questions. It's not no one word answer. They usually talk about it, which is kind of cool.
I would definitely put somebody in a hard position. I'd start asking things I'm not supposed to.
Ask, somebody say, you know better than that, Tomato. All right, let's. But go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Well, the community part of it is a very good point. This game's lived off the community. You know, if they didn't focus so much on community, especially in the early days, the game wouldn't be in existence anymore. And that is a very good point to make. Is like being there and talking to the people is a big deal. It's a tough call to make for CIG because I believe that the event needs to change over time. I do. I think there should be a chance for people to get together and talk, but also they need to, as the community that can look at this game and the exposure it gets explodes really. They need to start to tighten in that communication and make sure they're sending the right message at the right time and doing it in a way that it can be easily shared and shown to people. Because there's a lot of misconceptions about this game. It means a lot if they can put together a day worth of content that tells everybody straight up what's going on, what's planned from the mouths of the people.
Yeah, it would be good. That's one of the things I miss again when you go. There is a bit of haziness now that it's been digital the last 3 years. You know, when you went before, it was kind of like it was much more defined. But also back then, as I mentioned, they've shifted away from here's the vision to here's what we're doing. I think that's kind of the feeling that we're getting now. It's more tangible. Usually now when we see something, like for example, in 2018, 2019, they showed us, remember when they did the thing with the 4 vehicles and they said, here are 4 ideas we're working on, and they had everybody vote. Well, within a year, 2 years, all those vehicles finally appeared, right? That was like a instance. But again, man, there's so much about this CitizenCon thing we could talk about how things have changed. I agree with you. It needs to tweak. There's a uniqueness about this though, Tomato. I have never known a game to have cons before a game is out. That's a whole different freaking dynamic too. Now, not to be funny, the first year we went, in LA, it was 600 people. When I went in 2018, it was like 1,700 people. And we were there all day at the center. And this is for a game, quote unquote, you know what I mean? That's not out. People were coming
Yeah.
from Germany, from Australia, you know, and traveling. Unlike any other game convention, like when I used to play Eve, people used to go over to Iceland. You know what I mean? But that was an established game that over time had built that. But here's a group of people who are willing to sacrifice and come to a convention for a game that was still not, you know, just barely in their hands, which is really kind of interesting to me because we weren't even in 3.0 in 2016. So there's some uniqueness about it. And I agree, it needs to be morphed. It can't remain what it was before. You know what I mean? It does need to morph. I've seen them add some good things. And then there are things I also, like you said, I'd like to see them change in the way they communicate. Let's get Fist in because I'm talking too much. It's supposed to be the community talking. Fist, you there?
All right. Hey, what's happening?
Hey, how
Hey,
are
Fist.
What's going on, Space? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good.
you? Good. Your thoughts about CitizenCon? Does it feel like it's losing importance to you or CIG, or you think it's just as important?
For me, I don't think it's lose. Well, I first of all, I came into the game. I'm a late bloomer to the game, so I've never been to a CitizenCon. So for me, it's important, you know, for the point of fact of coming into meeting all of you guys, and you know, as far as, you know, being able to interact and ask questions, you know, mainly I would really ask questions to the audio people because I'm a nerd for that, you know, type of stuff. But as far as for CIG, do I think it's losing its importance? I mean, I can't really say because I wasn't here for the earlier parts.
Well, let me ask you this. You've been here
You know
for
what I
this.
mean?
Will this be your second or third one?
This would be, I mean, okay, so as far as the virtual one, this would be my second one.
Okay, so this to go with comparisons. I mean, let me come from a different perspective because you've heard us talk about the past ones. Do you think that maybe this person's feeling this way because of COVID, because that aspect of not being able to get together, and CIG kind of canceled it last year, then they canceled it again this year? Do you think that's why they're saying maybe it's not important?
I think that I think it does play a factor. I would be lying if I didn't say that, because I was kind of disappointed too, you know, for the point of fact that I was looking forward to going this year. But I understood their reasoning when they put it out, you know, that they, you know, obviously, you know, safety as well as you know, their concentration on, you know, certain aspects of the game. So I can understand that.
Okay.
You know, I'm not saying that it's not important to them, because if it wasn't important to them, they would say, well, look, we ain't having no sitcom at all.
Okay. And it's interesting that you say that, because there were some people who felt like, I don't know if you ever heard, Samuel, did you ever hear any people that were talking about, yeah, they should just let CitizenCon go and focus on doing the game? I've had people say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely the keynote. I don't know if I've heard them say the whole event, but I mean, there's always people who are, like you said, they're like, hey, the game's not complete. Why is there a convention? That kind of thing. Get rid of it and just focus on the game. But it's important.
Okay.
We need it.
It is. Okay. Now, here's the thing, though, too, because I will say, and I will agree with you, because I will parallel to another game, Ashes of Creation, right? They didn't have their own convention, but they went to a convention.
Okay.
When they first were advertising their game, it was in like really early alpha. You know, they had demos. I think it was PAX East or something like that. So they went there to get the, you know, obviously the word out.
Right.
You know, and for CIG to have a convention, obviously it serves its purpose, as you know, to get the word out, as well as for people to come and congregate and meet and have fun and ask questions and so on and so forth. So there is an importance to it in terms of obviously, you know, marketing and other aspects of that field and everything like that. So I wouldn't write it off.
Okay. So it's important to you. Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, the marketing's a big part.
All right. Thanks, Fist. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You know, it's funny that he would say that, because in the early days, CIG did the exact same thing. We used to see them at Gamescom, and we used to see them at what was the other one? Gamescom. They would go to PAX, They even went to Dragon Con one year or something one year. You know, they would have a table there. You know what I mean? And then they would have like the little section. At Gamescom, they always did. Matter of fact, the earlier presentations were at Gamescom.
Wasn't the announcement at Gamescom?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So that was kind of how it got started pre-CitizenCons, right? You know, and then they started having their own. And then I think like that first year they still did that and CitizenCon. Then after that they stopped doing those and, you know, just kind of focused on that.
Yeah, the first demo I ever watched like in detail was, I think, Gamescom 2017, I believe. That was the first one I watched live and was actually focused in on. The rest of them. It was just kind of summaries or after the fact.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to bring in Admiral Kusanagi next. Admiral, you there?
Hey, afternoon.
Hey, say hi to SpaceTomato.
Hey, SpaceTomato, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing right. Saturday, right?
Yup. What time is it over there?
3:29.
Ooh,
So,
that's nice.
East Coast.
Middle of the day.
Yeah. So you guys were just bringing stuff up I wanted to touch base on, but I'm going to go down a list real quick because Around the Verse, Bug Smashers, Subscribers Town Hall, 10 for the Chairman, Reverse the Verse. These are all things we've had since the game started.
Rip.
And then, like you guys were talking about, we had like CitizenCon going on that I've gone back, and so you get 2014 where they showed like the Constellation landing at the platform. They had the Cutlass series, the commercial. They had they talked about Arena Commander, and then in Gamescom 2015 they talked about Arena Commander 2.0. They talked about Star Marine. They talked about being able to use HOTASes. And today I feel like, what is now we have like Inside Star Citizen that we get regularly, and which everybody pretty much loves. We get Star Citizen Live like on Fridays, and like, so what are we missing that like a lot of all the other game developers, they don't do any of these shows that like we've been getting for years, almost a decade now. And I think maybe CitizenCon was very needed at the beginning, but since COVID, I think it's been able to spend more time in the game development and not have to spend like a quarter getting ready for CitizenCon, to have people show up and get their speeches ready and all that stuff. I just don't see how it really benefits us so much when we get so much information already. I think like Griff was saying, like Bar Citizens are way more fun than watching CitizenCon, because you get to see people like close to you. You can kind of actually be one-on-one friends. I mean, it's cool to meet somebody from across the country and be like, oh, catch you around on Discord, but it's kind of even cooler to like get people like in the local area, and for them to come out to Bar Citizens, which they do freely, and they want to get that going even more. I mean that's like a huge priority. I know that's for them, and I think people here in chat should definitely try to get to a Bar Citizen if they can. That's the way I kind of see. I see, they just give us so much information already. I just don't see the actual need for CitizenCon anymore, and not in a way that people need to actually go there. I mean, this is cool that they give us like 7 different shows or presentations that we're going to get next week. I just to do the whole rigmarole again just seems kind of crazy to me.
Yeah. Let me say this. I think to your point, CIG understands that that's important. I think because this is the first time that they've ever made a concerted effort to send representatives around the globe to different events. They've never done that before. If they came, it was random. But this time they actually, back in July, Tyler and them told us that they were going to start planning to go to different locations. So they just did the one in Singapore just recently. They've been down to Orlando. They've been all over the place, right? Because I think that interaction you're talking about, Admiral, that has been missing because we haven't been together the last 3 years, is something that they understand the value of it. And I'm gonna tell you, Admiral, I hear where you're coming from and I understand where you're coming from, but I'm gonna say this, and I don't want to say it the wrong way. Once you go to a CitizenCon, you'll get it. That's what I'm gonna say. Because I didn't think it was going to be what it was, but there's one thing my family knows that I'm going to do every year when I can, and I'm wherever CitizenCon is. In fact, to such a degree, Admiral, that I said the next time when it was in Great Britain, I'm going. That's the type of dynamic that I get when I've gone to that event, and there are very few things that I want to commit that type of, to go save money, spend money, and go do. But it was worth it. Even like I said, in 2016, with all the disappointment that everybody had in relation to the con, when I came back, I did not feel like, man, that was a wasted trip. I felt like, yeah, they didn't show us this, but I had a great time. So
I think you talk about the experience of any event. Like, I love a lot of music, and if I'll go see somebody live, that is a different thing, hands down. Exactly. It's different.
Exactly.
So I think what you're talking about is that different level of experience you would get from that.
Right.
Now, if there's a regular, I feel like a regular game company that doesn't put out any information, this would make more sense to have, quote unquote, a CitizenCon for them.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, because you're right. We get a ton of info.
So much information, we don't necessarily, quote unquote, need it. It's cool to go to, and the experience that you're talking about is definitely like there. And if people get to experience that, it's cool and all. I'm just thinking, like, if how old am I now? I'm just trying to figure out how many years I'm spending to, like, for them to put aside for a CitizenCon like every year.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at.
Okay. All right, Admiral. Thank you. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Admiral's one of our moderators too, SpaceTomato. So I love when he gets to come in. He gets to come in. Last but not least, we're going to bring in the terror himself, Fast Cart, my buddy.
Fast Cart. Hey, how's it going?
How are you? FC's gone to CitizenCon, so he can kind of give you his perspective. What are your thoughts, Fast Cart?
Good to see you, Fast Cart.
How do you too, man? Yeah, back in I want to say 2016. Yeah, most of my experience, you said it was like 40 or 50% for you. 70% of the experience for me was seeing people I've only seen online or chatted with online. So yeah, I missed that aspect. But I had to look it up because I wanted to be accurate. But it was back in May when they announced that there wasn't going to be a physical CitizenCon. So and I think keeping perspective back then, COVID was back on the uptick back then, so they wanted to be more safe than sorry.
Right.
It's easy to say that in October, like, what is that, May? A few months later, that COVID is not really as prevalent as it was back in May. But CIG had no way of knowing back then what the situation will be like now.
Right.
So I think that's important to keep in perspective. So I don't think that it's not important. It's just that they rather keep people safe, and different countries had different advisories for when it comes to COVID, so there's no way to know what it would be like. It might be more relaxed here, but it might be on like more restrictive elsewhere. So I think they made the right decision, but I was really disappointed when it first announced that there wasn't going to be one. But after 3 hours, I calmed down and I was in the acceptance phase.
So you don't think that CIG, it's less important to them? You just think the decision making has been based more around the whole health issue than the fact that they don't feel it's important to have or anything like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Like back in May, like I said, it was on the uptick, so they wanted to be safer. And sorry, I don't think they wanted to have it. Like back in 2020, I went to a bar citizen for PAC East. There was a big bar citizen with CIG folks showing up. They were really excited about the 2020 CitizenCon, and they were. I was talking to I forget her name, sorry. But I was talking to one of them, and they were like, they're trying real hard not to spoil anything. So they were really hyped up. So, yeah, they really want to do another physical one.
Okay. All right, FC. Thank you very much. All righty.
I think that's a good point. I mean, they've taken advantage of the fact that COVID has stopped the physical CitizenCon from happening, but I think as soon as they're able to, they'll have another physical one.
Back. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. And wow, Alex just said at the last Eve convention, a bunch of people got COVID. Okay, so I guess maybe that was a good decision. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic here. I think we kind of beat the death out of that one. By the way, if you guys want to come in and talk to Tomato, hey, there's a link there. Feel free to click on it. It'll put you in the queue, and you'll be able to give some thoughts. I know we might get some people who have some thoughts on this one, Tomato, so brace yourself, okay?
All right, let's do it. Yeah,
this one's an interesting type, and this is tied into this thing with hype and expectations, right? Because last year when we did a virtual bar citizen, We did one right before CitizenCon and right after it, right? And we called one hype, and the other one was called, I forget, Fast Cart might remember it, but it was basically like, people get all worked up, you know what I mean, for the night before. Usually there's a bar citizen the night before CitizenCon starts, so everybody's coming together, the devs there, everybody's wondering, what are we going to talk about, blah, 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 and everybody's theory crafting. And then that following week, we get the reality of what's going on, and we talk about that, right? Okay, so I want to show you a clip. This came on SCL, and Disco has talked to us in the virtual CitizenCons about this before. He's talked about hype. And I want to get your thoughts about hype versus marketing, because I think there's a line that gets blurred between the two, right? CIG as a company needs to market and needs to do things to get our attention and get us excited. But then there's when it starts to cross a line, and hype either can be created by the company or its community. So I want to play a clip for you that Disco did and get your feedback on it. Okay, so let's play this clip.
All right.
Manage your expectations, my friend. Don't do that to yourself. I don't think it's a good conversation if it hurts people's expectations, if it artificially blows up expectations to the point where they can't be met. I don't think that's a good combo. Remember that I am the killer. Hold on, there we go. Remember, what is it? Hype is the expectations killer.
It's really quiet for me.
Hype is the little death that destroys
Is it?
all reasonable
Oh, that's on me. Sorry.
Feelings about things. Do not let your hype get away from you. Who's calling me right now? I don't have time for this.
Okay, so hopefully, did you guys hear that? Hopefully you guys heard it, because if I need to play it again, I will. And I know it was kind of soft, so let me play it again, okay?
Manage your expectations, my friend. Don't do that to yourself. I don't think it's a good conversation if it hurts people's expectations, if it artificially blows up expectations to the point where they can't be met. I don't think that's a good combo. Remember that I am the killer. Hold on, there we go. Remember, what is it? Hype is the expectations killer. Hype is the little death that destroys all reasonable feelings about things. Do not let your hype get away from you. Who's calling me right now? I don't have time for this. Go back and listen.
Okay. All right. So that was it. And he said this to us in the when we've had the virtual bar citizens, he's talked about it. And one of the things he said, which really struck me and made me feel even more accountable as a content creator, he said that we don't mind when people share and talk about things that we've talked about and shared. He says, what bothers me is when people say things that we haven't said, or when people infer things that we haven't said, because it raises the expectations of the community beyond, what the company says that they can and can do. Some things they don't know if they can do, but sometimes people go down, a rabbit hole. So,
yeah,
what are your thoughts about that? What the hype that's generated from a marketing standpoint, or the marketing or the advertising, the hype that's driven by the community, any thoughts you have on that? And then we'll get some people who are already folks waiting to come in to talk to us about that as well. So.
I'm probably guilty of that. I think it's difficult because there is so much complexity planned for this game that's been talked about either a very small amount or a large amount over the last, 9 years that we've been following it. Mm-hmm. You can look at even the design guidelines that are still on the website that maybe they're not following that closely, but they are there for you to be able to read freely. You look at that stuff, you talk about it, and even though CIG themselves haven't come out and explicitly talked about it, you can read it, right? Mm-hmm. And combined with some of the other things in the game, I can say, hey, this is how this is planned to work. This is how they've talked about it working. And that definitely generates hype. I think there's a line, like you said. Honestly, I feel like CitizenCon in the past has definitely gone more hype than marketing. And you can see that in some of the more unnecessary things that they've done. Land claims, introducing that so early, I think was probably, treading into hype territory. even throwing the pyro thing into 2019 CitizenCon. Well, that was like a solid teaser. It wasn't like they were talking that much about it, but even as just a teaser, that's hyping. And geez, I hate to bring it up, but the roadmap from 2016 at the end of the convention, that's hype. You know, it's not marketing because it's not necessary. We didn't need to know what was going to be in 3.3 or 4.0 at that point, even though it was supposed to be a year out. It took them all the way up until this year to learn to stop giving us that much to look forward to. But you know, I agree that the hype can take over and it can really start to discourage people when that stuff doesn't come to fruition or it takes a long time to come to fruition.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. Let's bring in a couple people here. I don't know who was here first. Oh my God. Let me bring in, I'll bring in BBG. I know y'all, I'm probably going out of order, but I'm going to bring him in because he hasn't been in here yet. Then I'll bring some of the other folks in. Big Black Gaming, you there?
Greetings and salutations. Can you hear me?
Hey, there he is. Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Let's say hi to SpaceTomato.
SpaceTomato, what's up, dog?
Dude, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm a supporter of SpaceTomato's work. Been excited to see him do his thing. This is a good coming together.
You know what? If I could get the brother to join us, but he's so popular, you know what I mean? We just gotta have him in for guest spots, you know what I mean? But yeah, go ahead.
It's crazy timing, man. You know I'm gonna make time for you.
I know. Go ahead. What you thoughts,
he don't want to turn. He don't want to turn down his own light. You know, we understand. We understand that. It's all right. But what's exciting for me is, having been around this project since December of 2014. Is I do think we've seen an evolution, and I think it's three categories. I think there's hype, there's authentic marketing, and then there's sort of hybrid, right? There's hybrid. And I think the project has matured as Cloud Imperium has become more of what they want to be. Their approach to this has matured. And we see it in the difference between the way that we used to receive, for example, ships and the way that we receive them now, right? It's a very easy example. We got the Reclaimer because the Reclaimer connected itself with the hype around people's take on a ship from the movie Alien. Not because the Reclaimer was going to have a meaningful function at all relative to its purpose in game. Right? But now, today, you know, we're getting the Vulture because we're getting salvage, right? And for me, that's one of the differences. Marketing is about giving somebody value who is engaged in what you're doing. And hype is saying you don't have value unless you're part of this, regardless of what it's doing. Right? And I think that I don't think anything was ever malicious, but I think that the project has matured. It's grown up. You know, we are beyond the stage of the project's adolescence, right? Where we were trying to figure things out. And so I'm excited because I feel like there's a level of trust over the past several iterations and offerings such that we can, when we start to see a ship, we can begin to lean into the idea that this ship is going to have some meaningful functionality in the current testable alpha iterations that we have. So I'm enjoying that. I think, you know, Admiral Kusanagi talked a lot about a lot of the different content that we used to have. And I think that even in that way, we have gotten a refined product that we get now that's really very purposeful. So the marketing, I think, is purposeful. Now, does this organization still have to sell us things? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Right. We spent last week talking about how $500 million in one context is a lot of money, and in another context, given this ambition, may not be enough. Right? It may not be anywhere near enough. So there still has to be a level of marketing that matters. And I think that tension where some people say, well, this feels a little FOMO to me. This feels a little FOMO. For those that don't know that acronym, it's called fear of missing out. Well, yeah, I think, they do sales, right? Like Nordstrom's does sales or Macy's does sales.
Yeah.
Right. There's a period of time where things are on sale and a period of time where they are not. Right. And that's modern business. I don't think that that's hype. I think we've gotten the discipline of marketing. And I think that towards Jared's point, they're working very hard as human beings at every turn to make sure that expectations are managed and that there's an effort to be clear in the communications. So I appreciate them and the evolution that they've gone through.
Okay. All right, BBG. We appreciate that. Cheers. Some good thoughts there. All right, you got it.
Thank you, man. They've certainly gotten better at it.
Yeah. It's interesting. There is a dynamic. It's difficult when you have a company that you were there, most of us, a lot of players, let's say that a lot of people were there from the ground floor. You know what I mean? The mom and pop feel. You know what I mean? When everybody sat around the set that was half put together, when they were still buying used equipment to shoot video, and you grew up in that. And it kind of is like how people are with bands. When bands come out when they first start out and, everybody's all into them. And then as soon as they start to become successful, then people start saying they sold out or they went corporate, and CIG has grown, right? They're not the company with Ben Lesnick and him sitting around the table just chumming it out for the day now,
Yeah.
And there are a lot of us that are nostalgic for those days, but it has progressed. And I think it's difficult for a company to remain, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's difficult to still have that feeling of connection when you have grown in scale like that. It's difficult. And it takes a concerted, deliberate effort. It will not happen. In the beginning, it was organic. Now you have to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Like when I say that they now doing these bar citizen visits, that had to be a concerted decision to do, because it would be very easy to say, we've just grown too big. We've got so much going on. And, can we really afford to send people to go sit at these bar citizens? You know what I mean? It would be very easy from a corporate position to say there's no value in that. But to a lot of people, when those people walk into the room, when frickin' Aaron Roberts is there, that has tremendous value. 10 years later, it has frickin' value. And I can't describe it. I'm not trying to, I hate to sound like I'm white knighting, but what I am saying is that little mom and pop thing, I think is beneficial. Because if they get so distant that all of a sudden, 4 years ago, I was able to walk up to Chris Roberts and give him my poster and sign it, and he could spend 3 minutes talking to me. And now, 7 years later, Chris Roberts, you know what I mean? Dude, you can't even.
Not even there.
Dude don't even show up at the conventions. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, let me move on. But you get my point.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And it's going to continue to go that way. And that's a good argument for CitizenCon, being a place where people can come together and talk to people like you've been saying.
Yeah. Let's bring Pops in. Pops, you there? By the way, don't forget, guys, you guys can click on the link and come in and talk to SpaceTomato. Give us your thoughts about hyping expectations. Yeah, Pops, go ahead.
Yeah, this is my thought from Disco, what he was doing. Because it's like this. You giving a barbecue, you and Space are throwing a barbecue. And let's say I start a post and I say something ridiculous. Like, oh, they're giving a car away at the barbecue. I'm not the one that's going to get the heat when no car shows up. It's going to be you in Space. So and I think this is what Disco was trying to do. He's trying to say, don't do these things because you're not the one that's going to get it. We are.
Yeah.
So kind of curve them back. We put up a post and we say, man, beta next year. And people are going to start believing it. So I don't blame them. I absolutely don't blame them at all.
Do you think? But on the
go ahead. Go Space.
Well, on the flip side, I also find it kind of frustrating sometimes to make content following Star Citizen, because the same thing happens the other direction. They tell us something, we report on it, and then they change it last minute, and it makes us look really bad. And obviously it always goes back to CIG, but Griff, I'm sure you've seen the YouTube comments, man. The comments and streams. It comes back on us when we are trying to report on what they're telling us, and then those things slip. And granted, it's internal stuff. It's never a promise, and I understand that completely. But those people don't. And it gets harder and harder every year when you keep saying the same thing and it keeps continuously making you look like you got egg on your face.
Let's talk about something that you're going there. Stay with us, Pops, because I'm going to throw this at Space. Space, one of the things that happens, whether you like it or not, is you as a content creator become an authority on the subject. Not that you declare yourself as such, but people respect what you do and appreciate what you do, and by default, over time, begin to trust what you say. And so it's kind of like, I'm gonna speak from a Christian standpoint, from religious standpoint. People will listen to the preacher instead of go read the Bible. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, people look at you. I'm not saying that you declare yourself as the all-knowing, all-wise content creator, but people will do that with you because of your integrity of how you present information. And then when something doesn't happen, right? Instead of saying, well, dude, y'all can look at ISC just like I do. That's where I'm getting my information, or read the forums. You catch the heat for it. You know what I'm saying? So I understand what you're saying, but I also have to put a lot of that, like you said, they don't know it, but that's kind of like the casualty that you are being a content creator. That, look at what happened with morphologists, right? Remember the whole A2 fiasco, right? The reason why it was a fiasco is because people respect and listen to morphologists because he presents himself in a way that he has integrity about what he's presenting in Star Citizen. And they felt that when he expressed something, CIG was going to automatically respond to it, right?
Yeah.
That's not what's going to happen, but I'm saying that's what people think. And people put these things on you guys. That's not your fault. You never said, hey, I'm the encyclopedia. Pardon that old expression, y'all, because I don't know my encyclopedias. But you've never said, I'm the encyclopedia for Star Citizen. But people will do that because they may come to you for their information, right? And when you
it's
don't,
a natural part of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the tough side of it. It's not your fault. You never said, hey, I'm the authority on information for Star Citizen, but we do that.
Yeah, and. Yeah, I think I can't speak for everybody else, but honestly, I didn't exactly expect that, to be honest. So it's not like you sign up and you're like, okay, people are going to trust me. Thousands of people around the world are going to be spouting what I say. It just kind of happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. All right, Pops, thank you so much for sharing that, man. Okay.
Can I?
Oh, I'm sorry. I bumped him out of here real quick. Let me see what Pops wanted to say. Hang on. All right, Pops, I caught you the last second. What did you want to say? Oops, I got him in the wrong room. There you go. What was the Pops? What do you want to say?
Oh, well, I just wanted to say one thing. People like Space, you have a reputation. And when you go on, that's what's on the line. And people, again, have to see the same thing with you as CIG. And you are put in a very difficult situation where they tell you something and then it doesn't happen and people come at you. But people get to know you, Space and Griff, and that's where it lies at most of all.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you.
Right.
We appreciate that.
Yep.
All righty. All right, we got two more. Let's bring in Fist to Face, and then we're going to bring in a little bit of madness, and then we're going to move on. Fist, you there?
What's happening?
Yeah, what's happening?
Yes.
Give us your thoughts.
Okay, I got to start off with this. Don't believe the hype. All right. So that's first thing. But my thing is when it comes to hype and expectations, hype, I have to agree with Disco. Hype can sometimes, for personal reasons, like it can, it can oversell something. Right? And I liken it to, like, you ever had this where as you're a kid and you see that toy and you're overhyped to get that toy. As soon as you get it, you're like, oh, wow, this is not as what I
Yeah. Well, to your point, what Disco said was he didn't say you're setting up the community for disappointment. He refers to setting yourself up for disappointment if you're not careful. To your point, I'm saying that's exactly what you're saying. He said you might be setting yourself up for disappointment.
Right. And that's a big thing because I'll say this because I'm gonna go towards something that I did with another game, Lost Ark. I was super hyped for that game when I first saw it. Man, I saw the graphics, I saw the combat. I was like, oh man, this game's gonna be amazing. You know, I'm sitting in front of the TV and in front of the monitor watching Smilegate's news and all of that stuff, just you know, itching for any kind of word, right, on it. And it came to release in because that's what it originally was released in Korea, and I seen the combat and I seen more of the game, and I'm like, you know, because of just for me, my personal things of where I saw, you know, the business model was other things that I saw in the games for his gameplay, but I had to look back at it and say, well, man, hold on. Did I overhype the game? Because I was like religiously looking for this game. I'm like, man, I'm ready to play this game, ready to dump my time into it and be whatever. So I think a lot of it, like others have said in the previous conversations, you know, Pops and BBG and so on and forth, that you have to definitely be aware of that. Okay. You know, at the end of the day, it is a game, and we all want to have fun and excitement to it. You know, we all want to see something, but you know, we do have those bad habits. Okay. You know.
Okay. So we have to manage our expectations, like Disco said, right? Okay.
We do.
It's easy to get carried away.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
And I get it. You know, hype is a part. Sometimes, you know, hype is good in a party setting. Right?
In a party setting, right? But if we do it in real life, it's a little bit different, right? Okay.
There you go.
All right. Don't believe the hype. All right, Fist. Thank you, man.
There you go.
All right. Let's bring in a little bit of madness, and then we got one more to him. A little bit of madness. You there? I'm sorry. Pulled you right in while you're talking to Red. Sorry about that.
Yes. I was. Yeah. What's up, man? How's it doing? So I was listening in the kitchen. I was doing the dishes. I was listening to somebody talking about stuff, and I was getting outraged, as you do. And you kind of going, I was like, how dare he? He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, he hasn't. No, of course. Hey, everyone's entitled completely to opinion. I've also been told I must keep my profanity to a limit, so I'm going to do my best.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to do my best because I do sometimes get nervous and sometimes potty mouth comes out.
Relax, anyway, take a deep breath and enjoy yourself. Go ahead.
So just to go with the first person, he was talking briefly, he was saying like Star Citizen's in adolescence or something. And I was like, dude, it ain't even out the pram. In fact, it's probably still in the womb. It hasn't got its brain. It hasn't got its heart. The AI is all over the place. It's got no economy. It's, you know, it's like the fundamental aspects of this game that will make it. It's got no PES yet. It's got no surfer meshing. It's not even close to an adolescence. It is well and truly still forming. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I was like, from in my perspective, my view, no freaking way is it adolescent. So that was that. But in terms of CitizenCon, from my perspective as well, it's like did I miss a post-it note? Because I thought they weren't doing anything this year. I thought it was like, hey guys, here's a post-it note. See you next year. We're focusing on finishing Squadron 42, and we don't want to be distracted by doing anything.
Yeah, they're still doing the digital.
We're just going to do.
Yeah, they're still doing the online one. They're still doing the online one.
Okay, so I was like, well, why? I was like, don't do anything. Finish Squadron 42, please. Like, you know, it's 10 years now. Finish Squadron 42. Come on, now, just get that shit done. Okay. In terms of hype for the overall CitizenCon, my hype is Squadron 42. I don't read lore. Like, I know Space, some people here, they do that. That's dyslexic. I hate reading stuff generally. I get it through visuals and listening. And so for me, Squadron 42 is my book, you know? It's like, it's going to bring me into the game. It's going to give me all that sweet lore. And so for me, I'm like, hurry up, please. Come on, before people spoil it. You know, I keep trying to avoid all these wicked videos from Space and other people poll. I don't want spoilers. I want to play it, you know?
Right.
So, but in terms of CitizenCon hype, obviously it's new spaceships. Everyone's going to be excited about new spaceships. But for me, I want to see PS get in.
You're ready for Squadron 42.
I'm ready for Squadron 42, dude. Yeah, I'm like, give me some Squadron 42 goodies. Come on, man. Like, seriously, I don't want to see another video where you show some AI picking up a fucking tray. Sorry, I swore. Damn, I don't know if I'm going to do it.
It's okay.
Picking up a tray, walking over and sitting down. I don't want to see. I've seen years and years and years of that. I really have. We see it every week, man. I'm like, just give me Squadron 42. Just give me that chapter 1. Give me that sweet stuff.
That's fair. No, that's fair. Thank you. A little bit of madness. No, listen, you're the first person who's you're the first person who's kind of shifted that conversation, because quite often people forget that Squadron 42 was really the original promise, not Star Citizen. And so
they were both promised. They were both promised.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that what I'm talking about as far as timeline goes, when they were giving out dates of launch, those of us who came in on the Star Citizen and knew that was going to be over time. But Squadron, that standalone, was the thing, like you said, that people were like looking forward to playing the standalone game, right? And all the chapters and everything, right? So I hear you, though, and I agree with you. I'm glad that a lot of stuff has not leaked out about this. But let me say this to you before you go. CIG said this to us. I can't remember if it was Jake or Disco. Somebody said recently that somebody who works there saw Squadron 42, and it literally brought tears to their eyes. That's all I'm gonna say to you.
I mean.
So maybe it'll be worth the wait. Is my point. Right? Let's say it's worth the wait. All I'm saying is, whoever this was somebody who's familiar with games. I think it was Jake. It was somebody who saw it and said, "Oh my God, what you guys are going to get is going to be way beyond what you expect." So
I've heard some stuff. I'm excited for it. I mean, it's possible that the characters could have been standing on chairs and he saw that and then he brought tears to his eyes as well. It's possible. It's like, no, not more tears. No, I mean, it's great. No, I'm
sad tears.
Chris won't accept anything but perfection in terms of visuals, right?
True.
So, I mean, it's going to be stunning. Yeah. I just hope the pacing is good, because that's always the worry for me still with the game that we play in the universe, because it's hard to, because it is an alpha, it's hard to judge it completely, but sometimes the pacing is painful. I was hoping with persistence coming in, that's what excited me really. It's like persistence. I'm like, great, well, and I might save some of that wasted time every time you get in getting ready to do anything if it will persist, but I don't know if that's coming in yet. So anyway that's it.
We appreciate you, man. Thanks for dropping in. Okay,
no worries, man. Take care.
All right.
Tears in the eyes. See, that's hype. That's like when you're describing somebody else's reaction to something.
That's what they said.
I know. I just like the thing to say there is they got to see the game.
They enjoy it and leave it there,
and then
leave it there, right? They don't want to make you want it anymore, right? Okay.
Because nobody else might react to it.
Well, you know what? Some people, if they leave it like that, they'll be like, "And that's it." So
hey man, it's been 10 years.
Either way,
if you get to see the game, it sounds magical to me.
All right, we're gonna bring in the last one here. That's Red Bear, and if I can grab him, why won't my Discord let me grab him? What's going on? Red, I don't know what's going on here. My Discord's acting crazy. Give me a second here. FC, if you're there. Oh, there he is. I got him. There we go. Red, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Give us your thoughts on this hype and expectations thing. Should we calm ourselves down?
Oh, of course. We should calm us down. I mean, if you get too hyped, then you will set yourself up for disappointment. That's has been true over the last decade.
Yeah.
I disagree with a little bit of madness. I love you, guy, but this decade is a milestone, and I think they should celebrate this. Maybe next year pass it on and then have the noses into the computers and work on. But I think it's another wise move to skip this one.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, and I had mentioned this before he came in, that I know that there are people who've kind of felt like, and Space said something earlier, and I think there was Admiral Kusanagi. We do get a lot of information. In fact, there's so much information. A lot of people have forgotten stuff. There are some people who don't know about 10 for Chairman. People who don't know about Citizen of the Stars. People who don't know about Wingman's Hangar. They didn't sit through all of that stuff. And there is a ton of information out there. And it's almost an information overload, to be honest with you. Space, you mentioned earlier about the how there's these different pieces of lore. And I always use this as an example. Death of a Spaceman we heard about forever, right? And then when we finally got a version of it or the implementation of it, it was about 80 to 90% of what Chris Roberts said it was going to be. It really was. And a lot of people were concerned because they were like, well, man, Theft of Spaceman, he wrote that 9 years ago. Is it going to be, are they going to be able to do it? And so they tweaked it because they did some things there to change it. It was more of a reincarnation thing or whatever. But my point is that, we know that the vision can change, but they were pretty close to what Chris Roberts wants. Now, there are going to be some things where they're going to hit it on the mark, that they are able to do. And like Tomato mentioned this earlier, there may be some things that literally they're only 70% able to accomplish what it is they wanted to do. Or it may take years before they can get it to 90% or 100% of what they want to do. But the hype and expectations thing, I think, for me, I think Disco's words are important for all of us to think about. It's difficult, though. Space, you said it a second ago. It's difficult not to get hyped about something you're excited about, not to blur that line, because we're all looking for, and I hate to say this, I hate saying this. We're all looking for that ultimate game. You know what I mean? There's no such thing, but we're always looking for it. And for many of us, Star Citizen, from Chris Roberts' description, sounds like it could be that thing that we want. I want Star Citizen to be around 20 years from now. I want it to be like Eve. And if it takes work and time to do that, please do it, because I don't want it to be, and I'm not picking on this company when I say it, but I'm only saying it because everybody in the room knows what I'm talking about. I don't want it to be CD Projekt Red. The company had a great reputation, and then a game 6 months later, a lot of people were no longer playing. That would be painful for me for Star Citizen to fall into that category. And it's not that it couldn't. I just don't want that to happen. So,
but now it's making a comeback, right?
Yeah, but guess what? Look at the roller coaster ride, right? You know what I'm saying? Because CD Projekt Red, reputable company, does very well, had the staff, engineering, and everything else, but made some faux pas. If they had given them a year, what might have been different, right? Maybe they wouldn't have lost people. Now they're trying to gain people back. But even in that process, and I always use No Man's Sky as an example, 2011, they started on that sucker. E3 2013, we see it. 2016, it's terrible. 2022, it's finally reaching its fruition. 11 freaking years later, and you can still only put 4 people in it. So we have this great demand for Star Citizen. It's supposed to be global with thousands of people, and we say 10 years is too long. Well, No Man's Sky is 11 years, and they're still working on it. So it's a painful pill to swallow. I hate to say it. It is. But that's the reality. And we can pick other games if we want to and talk about how long it's taking them to make them. But 500 million, that's nothing. I know it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to me, believe me. I'm not saying $500 million is nothing. But in the scheme of things, right now, I think for GTA 6, the budget is somewhere between $700 million to $1 billion now for one game that has an engine and a studio already in place. So CIG is doing 2 games at $500 million, $50 million a year for 10 years. How much does a mobile game make a month? Do you guys know? Space, you ever look at how much PUBG makes a month?
I think I saw that there was a mobile game that made something like 3 billion.
Yeah.
This year so far, something like that. Just recently, I think I saw that.
He makes in 1 quarter $400 million.
So,
a mobile game, guys.
Yeah, mobile game on top of it, right? So when you put it in that perspective, it's like, yeah, guys, we're making some money, but trust me, it could be a lot worse.
It's peanuts.
All right, we got
that's actually from a video from Montoya.
Yeah.
Did a nice subject on it, to be honest.
He did. Yes, he did. So guys, check that video out. If we can drop the link in, we will. Thanks, Red Baron. We're gonna bring one more person in, Kai, and then we got to get going because Space is yawning and I want to keep him up all night. Let's bring in Kai in. Kai, you there?
I'm always yawning.
Hello.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
How are you, man?
Hey, Kai.
I'm good. Hey, how you doing, SpaceTomato?
Good, man. I'm good.
Yeah, hype and expectations. It's a very interesting sort of thing with Star Citizen. I think, like many things, the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. There's, I think, a lot of real criticism that can be leveled against the project for certain things and timetables and whatnot. That it's like, yeah, it has been maybe a little bit longer than a lot of people have thought and whatnot. But at the same time, if you look back, if you go in think Elite Dangerous is actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest game for development because it had officially started development with Frontier Developments in 1992. Officially, that's when David. That made me do a double take as well. When I first heard it, I was like, that's just wrong information, and then I Googled it, and that's when David Braben had first said that, like, yeah, I am working on this. Now they didn't end up like kickstarting it until 2013, whatever. But they literally it was listed as being in development at that time, which made me it made me do a double, triple, quadruple take. But it was accurate information.
Alex confirmed you here. He says, yeah, 14 years plus. Yeah.
So and I think. Also, with that, again, hype and expectations, man. Sometimes I see the hype train run away with Star Citizen backers, and I sometimes think, we do this to ourselves. I've talked to Jared about this particular thing where he said, "This is a thing that really bothers me when people run away with things that we didn't say and then afterwards sort of blame us for not meeting the expectations of promises that we didn't make." We made a general statement that was one thing. We said we're going to work on A. People in their mind extrapolated that to be B or C, and then in the end when we deliver A, they're angry at us, and it's like, well, guys, go back and look at exactly what we said. Like, don't get overly whatever. And for a project like Star Citizen, and you're absolutely right to point it out, Griff, that it's very clearly 2+ projects. It's nebulous to me, honestly, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 projects, because you have the Star Citizen and Squadron 42, definite 2 separate products. Squadron 42 is supposed to be like in 3 parts or 4 parts or something. It's hard to keep track of. And then there's, what else is there going to be, et cetera, et cetera. And when you're looking at the scope of a thing, when you're looking at like what are they trying to do, if you're talking about putting out another, shit mobile game, or if you're talking about putting out with no disrespect whatsoever to games that are iterative, but like when you're talking about putting out another FIFA ad the year, NBA 2K ad the year, with this game or that game, where they're literally just sort of doing a reskin of the same game, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to those products because those products have a definite market. But when you're talking about something that is so different on the level of what Star Citizen and Squadron 42 are starting to do, basically you're buying into a whole hell of a lot of research and development and a whole hell of a lot of doing something that's never been done before, and that takes time and money. And I think that for those people who feel like, hey, I was burned, I was promised I was going to get a thing in 2014, and then I was promised again I was going to get it in 2016 or whatever, like, I don't fault those people for their feelings. They have a right to feel definitely disenchanted by whatever they want to feel. But there is also a whole other group who say, no, I bought in for the dream and I want the actual dream. I don't want half measures. I don't want something rushed. That's the whole point of why I bought into this project. Like, I have many, many games in my library, and from those games I expect certain things. This game is an entirely different beast. I've put in a decent amount of money into this project, and while I definitely understand those people that have feelings of like, hey man, I don't like this, or I don't whatever. Me personally, this project is in a whole different category, and for me, this project is in the category of I want it done right, and I don't. I'm just not angry. I don't have the venom to get mad over timetables or whatever. I just
look at this one thing as, okay, in my life, I've had many Toyotas. I'm going to have one Ferrari, and maybe it's going to take way too damn long by some people's reckoning to get it. But I just want this one Ferrari to come out perfect, and I'm willing to go on a long ass ride to get there.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair enough. All right, Kai. Thank you for sharing that,
Love
man.
you, brother.
All right, you too,
Talk
man.
to you later.
Take care of yourself.
Good to see you, man.
All right. I'm gonna bring Kai out of there. I want to address two things I want to say. First of all, Topaz, thank you for the follow. Guys, please forgive me for missing all this. My chimes did not go off for some reason. Sinleia, thank you for the gifted sub. We appreciate that. Mount Stunner, MT Stunner, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Y'all give a shout out to MT if you guys got one of those. And Sinleia, thank you also for gifting Fast Card. Don't give Fast Card anything. He works here. What are you giving him something for? All right, no, thank you so much
him the
for
scraps.
gifting that sub. Yeah, give the employees something. They can never be in the contest, so I guess they can get a sub, right? We can do that. Okay. Some really good stuff. We are running a little behind, so I'm going to kind of jump a little bit ahead. This is where, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, we're kind of covering CitizenCon since we know that got coming up next week, and wanted to get Tomato's feelings on some of these. So what we're going to do is very quickly go down the list of upcoming stuff that's going to be happening at CitizenCon next week. And I just want to kind of get Tomato's feelings on any of the subjects. Some of these are a little cryptic. Yeah, some of them are a little cryptic. Some of them are pretty straightforward about what it is CIG wants to do. So just you guys will understand what it is we're doing here for this particular one, okay? Let's see. If I got my thing, why is my thing telling me something crazy? Okay, yeah, that's right for disco. All right. So let's change over. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about what we've got coming up. Next week, don't forget, October 8th. We're going to be doing a watch party here with our groups. If you guys want to sit and hang out in our Discord and talk to us, you can do that. But let's hop right into this. One of the first topics that they're going to be talking about is planetary pyro. Join us for a guided in-engine tour through many of the planets and moons of the upcoming pyro system, exploring their current development status and why they are more than just burnt, charred husks that you may have read about. Maximilian Kielik is going to be the senior environment artist, is going to be the one leading that particular one. Any thoughts on this one, Space?
I'm glad they're finally explaining the retcon, because it has been, oh my gosh, like we've known that it's been different for 2 years now, maybe 3 years, but we haven't had the updated info. And like I put out a video earlier this year just kind of explaining the different planets and stuff, and I'm like, how do I explain this stuff without using the lore that's clearly outdated? So
yeah,
it's cool that we're getting to see it. I'm glad it's in engine. What I'm really interested in seeing for this one is if it's just going to be the planet tech, just going to be walking around the planet surfaces, or if they're going to slip in some other of the things, because we've seen a lot of stuff. I don't know if people remember, they showed us canyons like 4 years ago, 3 years ago. They showed us they were working on canyons. We've seen rock arches. They've shown us in the gray box and the final arch stage at CitizenCon last year. We know that they've been working on, let's see, I know they're not going to be doing lava, but we know that they've been working on other things that have to do with planet tech. And I'm really interested in seeing if they start to try and show more of that during this whole in-engine tour. I'm also excited to hear about Pyro 6. That's the only one we haven't seen yet. We've seen footage from every planet so far in this system except for Pyro 6. And it's going to be interesting to see how much they've really... This is the first time they knew what planet tech really was, right? They got V4 completed. They said, this is how planets are going to be built. We'll keep adding on top of this, but this is the initial setup. And I think they actually finished that around the time they were doing microtech. So we got to see it a little bit.
Yep.
But now they've started from scratch. They've got all new ideas. They've got an all new system to work on. And this is really going to be a good chance for us to get a good idea of what they plan for planets going forward.
See, you guys, now you see why I said he's a walking encyclopedia for Star Citizen. You guys can just, anything that doesn't show up next week, feel free to let him have it, you know?
Yep, quote me on it.
Those are great things. Let me ask you this, before we move on to the next session. Do you think, this has been my theory, and my folks have heard me say this before. I think that there was substance to us seeing, what's the guy's name who took off in the Odyssey last year?
McCleary?
Yeah, Jax.
Jax, yeah.
I believe there was significance of him leaving and going to Pyro.
Yeah.
Do you think that we'll see him come back?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
100%. I mean, that would be strange.
That would be the way to do it. But that would be the way to do it, right?
Is he gone?
Yeah. I mean, but there's a lot that could come with that, right? And I'm not going to listen, y'all. I ain't throwing no hype out there, so don't quote me. But I'm saying if he were to come back, what a great way to introduce this whole thing into Pyro. Or when we go to Pyro, we run into him. It'd be cool too. But between now and IAE, because he left at IAE last year.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe not for CitizenCon.
Yeah, but it will be interesting to see if they use that as an introduction for us as players to the system of Pyro, which I think would be awesome. I don't know if CID's going to do that or not.
I gotta clarify because I got them mixed up. I think he will be back in IAE. Back as in front of our eyes, not back in Stanton.
Okay.
I don't think we'll see him at CitizenCon.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Let's go to the next one here. Design brief. Explore the pitch process for a new mission archetype that leaves combat and delivery behind for mindful deduction and increased storytelling. Luke Presley, senior lead designers on that, and Elliot Maltby, principal system designer, is going to be on that. Design brief. How we get missions. They're going to have a new way that we have to address missions. It's not going to be just as cut as dry as go do this, and bring it back is what they're trying to tell us. At least that's what it sounds like to me. What do you think, Space?
So I'm gonna have two sections to this answer. First is gonna be what I think they're saying with the words here. Second is gonna be that terrible stuff that we've been told this whole time not to talk about, which is the hype that they didn't say.
Yeah.
So first, I am excited to see this because we don't know exactly what they want missions to be. And in the same strain, we haven't known what they wanted outposts to be, what they've wanted points of interest to be, even what they wanted dynamic events to be, really, until the last year and a half or so. So everything before these, like, say, the last 2 years in terms of missions, I feel were mostly placeholder. And what we've started to see with things like the derelict missions, and even some of the stuff that they're doing with Siege of Orson, kinda. It seems like it's more along the lines of, just like many of the other things that they're doing, more finalized. It's more sure in the development. And I think this is going to be a really good chance for us to finally understand how missions are going to start to look as the game becomes more mature. Gives me reminders of the what's it called? The Covalix mission, the investigation.
See, yeah, that's where I was going to go, because I was going to ask you. The Kovalex mission was an example of this to me, because they mentioned about leaving combat and delivery behind, right? Which is the boxes and stuff. Remember when they showed us a few years ago, when they first showed us Microtech, there was that whole espionage mission that you had to do. Remember that? You had to crawl through. I mean, they started doing that with the Rex now and all this other stuff. But it seems like, and they also mentioned storytelling, that there's going to be some continuation, I guess, aspect of, purpose for, and maybe tied into reputation. I don't know. But to me, it sounds like they want to make more depth in what we're doing beyond just 1, 2, 3, and that's it.
That focus on storytelling is really key, because everybody can agree that the missions that we have in game right now, at least up until this year, have just been they've basically been you could throw a dart at a board and you're going to be playing the same thing every time. You go into a bunker, you shoot some people, you maybe grab a box or blow up a box or something, and then you leave. And the fact that they're starting to focus on storytelling, we've seen this in the monthly reports, narrative teams getting more involved, reputations getting more involved, AI storytelling, the AI are starting to get names. So this is going to start to matter more to players, and that's really good.
I was going to ask, remember when we first saw the what was the guy who was in the bar? He was in the bar. Miles. Remember when we first saw that mission? You woke up, you got that mission from him. It popped up on your Moby. You had the video of him. You take the mission. You go out, and then once you finish that mission, remember, it was a continuation. He said, oh, yeah, and by the way, if you want to do this, blah, blah, blah. There was a story, more of an arc there, more than just a go do this and it's completed. I would love to see that type of thing unfolding even more, where there's this greater, because like the whole Twitch mission was cool, but you know what I mean? I'd like to see it built out more, because like you said, otherwise just go to the bunker, kill everybody, turn it in, and you're done. I would love to see it continue. All right, let's take a look at the next one after that. The new underground. When corporations, commerce, and caverns collide, take your first look at the enormous reimagining of underground facilities and the new gameplay possibilities that will arrive with them. Ian Leyland, the Star Citizen art director, who we just met last week, is going to be covering this one. Any thoughts on this one with the new underground? Corporations, commerce, and caverns. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
that's ambiguous. That like
what a mix.
I read that. I've read that over and over again, and I'm like trying to figure out what exactly they mean. It sounds like maybe they're talking about having archetypes for underground facilities.
Can I throw one at you? Remember they did that thing where they showed us that they were working on internals at Orison for the buildings, and they said those would be like corporate places and places for missions. I wonder whether we'll see some of that start to kick in now as mission, mission locations or something, because they mentioned about corporations. I don't know,
Well, what I'm hoping that means is that the amount of things that you would do, and they also hint at this with the new gameplay possibilities talk, is that these underground facilities aren't just a replacement of the old ones in that they're putting the same missions in. They're talking about adding things in there that are actually going to be other reasons to go. Yeah. And they don't say it in the description, but they do say it in a later panel. I'm really, really hoping that they talk here about how resource management might play into what we're doing in those bunkers. Maybe you get an assignment that says, hey, this bunker is offline and it's a big trade port. It's been taken hostage. You need to go down there, clear them out, turn the power back on, make sure it's working correctly, that kind of stuff. Because the new gameplay possibilities, just like with the design brief, sounds like maybe they might be moving a bit more away from combat. And combat's the most important thing to watch in this game right now, but it's not the only thing in the game by far that they want to have. And we need to start seeing more in-depth missions and activities that don't depend on combat.
Yeah, going back to that design brief thing, they used a word here. Well, they said mindful deduction along with the increased storytelling. So there's this aspect now of puzzle solving, whatever the case may be, but you're thinking about what it is you're doing, and with purpose, with some type of depth and purpose beyond just what popped up in your mobile, you do it and it's done, You've got to think about how to fit it. So like you said, you mentioned resource management, make sure, was it the video? Oh, I can't remember what year it was, but it was the year when they flew down to Hurston. And they went out. No, it was in the vertical slice.
2017.
Yeah, and remember they went through that whole thing of getting to the facility, and the door was locked with the power off, and they had to go through that whole thing of pulling out a power cell from here.
Yes,
do you remember that?
Yeah.
There was a whole lot of figuring out stuff to get the place activated before you could even get to go do what you wanted to do. I would love to see some stuff like that start to kick in. All right, let's go to the next one here. Number 4. Where are you? There we go. The need for multiple speeds. We all know how speed impacts combat. Now learn how master modes, initially developed for Squadron 42, will impact the flight experience for the persistent universe and better define ships' roles for all vehicles in Star Citizen. Dave Coulson, Richard Towler, Gid Talbot, Yogi Klatt, and Johnny Young will be doing this panel.
That's a big lineup.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of folks covering that. And it is, we keep hearing about that, the flight model is always going to be improved and changed. It sounds like there's something major different coming. This master modes thing, what do you think?
Sounds like what they've been talking about how they want to develop things for Squadron and then have them in a good place before they come to Star Citizen. We don't know how long they've had this in Squadron working, being tested, being polished. But this could actually be a good addition to the game that's actually feels like a maybe not finished version of something, but a very close to polished. I want to be very careful with the words I choose. This could be something that feels really solid. And I'm waiting to see in particular what the effects look like. Because if we've got VFX, SFX, and stuff going on with this stuff, then I have a feeling it's something that's very advanced, something that they're very sure is going to be the way that flight goes going forward, and we don't have to expect any more big changes. What I'm mostly interested in, though, is one, if this is going to touch on VTOL, because we know that VTOL is getting a rework once the heat system is in, which is coming in once resource management is in, which we know is a panel in this as well. So it kind of lines up in terms of the timing. They have to redo VTOL flight. They have to bring back what was originally hover mode in a much better way. And that could be a big part of this. But also, we've been hearing a lot about quantum travel getting a rework. Not something I really was expecting a couple of years ago or even last year. But now they've talked about quantum travel mode being changed at least 4 different monthly reports this year. It's sounding like a very big deal. And I think, judging by how they've talked about it, I think it could be a major change to the game, almost to the point where we're talking about something similar to Super Cruise in Elite Dangerous. So I hope that they talk about quantum travel in this, because that's something, like I said, they've been talking about a lot.
Yeah.
And they've got nothing else on here that could relate to that. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I think it was Jake who was in my chat the other day, and I think it was this panel I was talking about and saying, hey, you know, I have been wanting to hear about such and such and so, and he was like, you know, you might see something soon.
Yeah.
So it could be the quantum travel. I can't remember what it was. There's too much stuff going on.
To your point, you know, my question becomes, why does this come up as multiple speeds? Why is that important all of a sudden? And now I'm starting to think about what happens when Pyro comes in, because as you know, Pyro is huge. It's much bigger than Stanton, and there are systems that are bigger than Pyro, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's all, for those of you who weren't around back in the day when we first got to jump from PO to Hurston, it took 15 minutes real time to make that jump back in the day. 15 freaking minutes. Okay. And then we saw them tweak it, right? And we've seen them tweaking times, even something as simple as the elevators or the trams, you know, that used to take 5 minutes. Now, you know, these things have been shrunk over time. And I'm curious as to whether or not, as you mentioned, right now we have the 2 modes that we travel in. Will there be something else added now that allows us to, you know, change when we're to larger spaces? Now, I don't think CIG is going to make it so that, you know, you're jumping across Stanton in 30 seconds or less. But I do wonder whether or not that they're going to do, there's going to have to be some type of adjustment, because these jumps are getting longer. Pyro is 2.5 times, almost 3 times the size of what we've got in Stanton. And so, yeah, there's things to do while you're traveling, but they've also got to keep the game, you know, they've always talked about stretching it to reality, then pulling it back for fun. So whether they're going to introduce some new something, because they mentioned this about the persistent universe, not just combat, I'm wondering whether or not there's going to be some new aspect of how we travel. Like you said, you know.
I mean, it goes back to what they've said. 2 things that I think stuck out to me this year they've talked about with quantum travel. One was quantum boost, which seemed to be the idea that you can go faster in quantum travel based on your own taking control of that. The other is the ability to change your heading, they've said. And both of those features sound to me like options they'd like to give players, because CIG loves this idea of giving you the choice of doing something and then making you deal with the consequences. And they might go in the direction of, hey, you can take manual control of your quantum travel, you can do these different things with it, but it's going to put more stress on your ship. It might end up using your resources more fast, or it might end up making you more visible to other people in the system. We don't really know what the drawbacks could be, but this could all be, multiple speeds in both quantum and also in SCM speeds. You know, maybe they'll bring back something like cruise, where you have an easier way of traveling a couple 100 kilometers as opposed to a couple 1,000.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. Let's hit the next one. I'm excited about this one. Lorville redone. We've come a long way since our first planetary landing zone, and here you'll get a first glimpse at how everything learned since then is being reapplied to this walled, polluted city. That's going to be Eric Gagnon, Maxime Guidon. I'm really slaughtering these names here, and Ian Leyland again. My good friend Nihilus calls Lorville a S-hole city, if you know what I mean. That's how he feels about it.
It's true.
You know, it's funny because there's a certain beauty about Lorville. You know, when you first go there for the first time, you're really kind of blown away by it and everything. But it's also very limited. You know, ArcCorp is too, to a certain degree, but Lorville's really limited. Other than that space that you can go into, it's surrounded by buildings that you can't access. Certain areas you can't fly into. You have to be careful just even going in there. And people have always said, CIG, please make it like Microtech, where we can fly around everywhere and do this, that, and the other. But they've told us that they were also, due to metrics, redoing the buildings, and that we'll be able to access them and some other stuff that's going to be coming up. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing what they do with Lorville. Any thoughts about this?
I'm glad it's getting a redo. We've known for a while that the cities are going to need extra work and that they'll have to go and retouch them. And I'm glad to finally see that's happening. Like you said, it's an old city. So being it brought up to the standard of something like, say, New Babbage is pretty good. All the buildings there are actually the outdated assets they used to show off ArcCorp in 2016, 2016, I think it was
17, something like that. Yes, a while back.
Yeah, 2016, 2017. So it's definitely going to get a major upgrade. We're going to get building interiors. That's almost for certain. We're getting different areas in the city now. They've talked about adding neighborhoods to the city. We don't know exactly what they mean by that. But if you look at the concept art for the city itself, while they've matched the tone a little bit in the game, the actual layout and scale looks nothing like the concept art. And I think that's probably what they're going to aim more for now.
Yeah.
I hope while they talk about this, given what we're seeing with Orison as well, or rather, I guess the buildings they're putting around Crusader, I'm really hoping that they talk about possible missions in Lorville as well. We want to get more reasons to go to these cities.
Yeah.
And I think getting a remake of the oldest city in the game, when the next system we get, no city's going to be there. The third system we get, only one landing zone. This gives them a fantastic time, fantastic chance to set the tone for the next few years when it comes to these cities.
Absolutely. Mad Style 1911. Thank you so much for those 7 gift subs. Mad Style's a big supporter of ours. I appreciate you as always. Okay,
Very
yeah,
cool.
I'm looking forward to Lorville. I mean, I'm an R Corp person because my wife lives there. She sits on that little podium with those cigars surrounding her. But ultimately, I really do want to see Lorville, like you said, because, you know, it's funny because Lorville already has these spaces that we don't even access. You know, those lower level areas down there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of areas that's like, there's really cool, but there's no missions. There's nothing that happens down there. So I would love to see it come to life. I agree with you on that. All right.
Yeah.
Power play. How the upcoming resource management system will change life in the verse as we know it, from combat to player homesteading, and allow for true multi-crew gameplay. Dan Truffin and Thorsten Lehman are going to be on this one. Big on this with the multi-crew aspect. Right now, crews can pilot. Your co-pilot can maybe call and open up a hangar for you. You got gunners. But that's about it, right? I got all these other roles that you would like to see happen. So what are your thoughts about this whole resource management piece? Because they gave us a little hint, right? When they put out that hammerhead picture with the thing that they were putting into the console. Remember that? The guys were changing out a panel or something like that?
Yeah. So this is easily my most excited panel. Like you said, they showed us this hammerhead, the art with it this year. And then we also got to see very early work with the developer side UI 2 years ago now with Dan Truffin. And even 7-8 months after that, he said, hey, you know what? We worked on this. We realized we're going to have to go through, not wipe the whole system, but we're going to have to do a lot of work on the back end to make this work. It's going to take longer than we thought it would. So now we're finally seeing that come to fruition. And this is going to be huge. I mean, this is not to overhype it, but like this is an actual game changer.
Can I say something when you said about hype? And I want you, and you guys do know this, not to be funny. CIG does lay these out based upon each one building on the next. So it's not like number 3 is the most exciting thing. Number 6 and 7 is what they're building toward. So I'm saying you're not overhyping it. This thing about power play and multi-crew, because CIG is tremendously based around this idea of multi-crew, is important. It is. I don't think you're overhyping it at all.
It's huge. This is what's going to decide that if you really want to take out that, I don't know, that Polaris or a Connie. You know, people are buying these huge ships. And this is where we start to see that you might not want a big ship because the amount of work that you're going to have to do to run it at top efficiency compared to somebody else who might be doing the same thing as you are might just not be worth it. And I'm excited about it, especially because while they've shown it a lot with the Hammerhead, and I thought the Hammerhead would be the first thing they move forward with, we've realized recently that the Hull A is actually going to be the first ship that really gets this stuff going in it. And that's really interesting because one of the most important parts of this is how is it going to work for single shooter ships? You know, how are you going to show people that they can do all of this resource management, all of this balancing of tools and systems in their ship, while also giving them comfort as they fly their ship. It's one thing to have an engineer and a hammerhead running around replacing relays, but if you're sitting in a ship with no interior, how are you going to make this doable in just a cockpit? And I think this is a very good and important chance for them to set the stage for this system going into 4.0. I'm very excited for this one.
This is where we see this whole thing with the ships that have gone gold standard. The ships that do have the access panels that actually work outside of the physicalized components and items start, like you said, they're starting to move in that direction now. So get ready to EVA out of your Gladius when you've got to replace that thing. You know, there's all types of cool stuff that they could do with this, you know.
Yeah. And that scares me too, because they're going to have to do this for every ship in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, did you notice that when the what's the X-wing thing, the freaking, what's it called,
the Scorpius?
The Scorpius. Did you see that thing came with all the component areas already there, including life support? There's all types of stuff in that ship already. There are a lot of ships that, for some of you, don't even know. Some of the ships have components that we don't, component areas for components we don't have. There's still scanners that have to be put in. There's life support systems that have to be in. I think the 400 in the back of the cargo area even has a batteries area for stuff to go into. So seeing these physicalized, like you said, expanding beyond 2 or 3 people who have something to do now in the ship. You mentioned engineers, people who will actually be doing some other things. I'm curious about them talking about homesteading though, because in relation to us, because they're saying it will change life in the universe from combat play to homesteading and allow for multi-crew gameplay. So are they implying that there'll be some form of homesteading that we actually impact, that it's not just a place where NPCs are, but now we may be pulling components or stealing components or
so
like
that I think that's a slippery slope, because people will take that as base building. I don't think that's really talking about our own bases. Yeah. But they've shown us plenty of they've shown us plenty of times these different concepts they've had, these different gray box phase designs they've had for the outposts coming out, and we've seen that they have interaction points already blocked off for that. They've shown us that, you know, they have batteries with interaction points, solar arrays, mining, refining things. So we know for sure that we're going to have maybe missions or tasks of some sort where you have to go down to an outpost and make sure things are running correctly. And that's kind of what I was hinting at earlier when we were talking about the underground panel. So yeah, that's also a really interesting part.
Okay. All right. And last but not least, the one that a lot of folks are always excited about, Talking Ships, our annual presentation from the ship teams. Discover the latest vehicles throughout the pipeline, from concept to a newly flyable and a new twist to this year's voting on the new ship to come. That's going to be John Crew, Ben Curtis, and Paul Jones, all our ship people there on that one. I'm not going to even ask you about what type of ship you think might be coming, right? We do know, here's some stuff that we know that we have seen that they've talked about. We know the SRV is being worked on. They've gotten pretty good distance with that one. The Corsair is another one that we've seen some good stuff with. The Hull C has been in line and waiting for a while, so there's a possibility of seeing some glimpses of something like that. The Banu Merchantman, they've been showing us stuff, right? And we may just see a little bit further down the road of where they are with that particular ship. Is there anything else that crosses your mind that you're thinking about that maybe CIG might, you know, pull out and show us? I mean, they're not saying it's ready or to be sold, but just anything that they may show us.
I keep getting this weird feeling about the Crucible. I don't think that they'll show it because I think it's too early, but for some reason that just keeps popping into my mind. I couldn't tell you though, to be honest. People might not like me for this, but I just don't really care about the ships that much anymore.
No, that's fine. Yeah,
I'm very excited for the features, for these systems coming online, for the back end stuff.
Are you interested in something if it introduces a career, something different that we haven't done yet?
Not really.
Okay.
Maybe if it's something that they're going to launch with a career right then and there. But
that's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, like they introduced, what was it, the Liberator this year, and I wasn't really that interested in it. It's a cool idea, and the whole forcing your boarding ship to work kind of thing is very, very cool. But it just doesn't excite me. Yeah, it introduces a new career, but so did kind of the Odyssey. So did things like the Reclaimer. So did the. It's just I don't know.
See, I'm excited
Doesn't
about
do it for me.
I'm not excited about seeing another ship, but I am excited about seeing something that opens up a career that maybe I didn't think about that they may come up with. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like that boarding ship, I never expected that. So I was like, oh, okay, that's good. I mean, it's not like a career, but I'm just saying I didn't expect that. You know, when we first saw the Valkyrie, I didn't expect that, you know. So if it's something that opens up a new form of gameplay, I'm interested in it. But if it's just another ship, you know, if it's a medium version, like if they decide to put out a mid-sized version of a scavenger ship, I'm not going to be excited, you know.
I would say that I would say that I am very much on the line at this point of I don't need to hear about new things that are going to come to the game anymore. I think the overall bubble of Star Citizen features is at a point for me where I'm like, just keep telling me about the stuff that you've
already got
told us. Yeah. And
Finish
how
it up.
you're making it a reality.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
So like if they introduce first, let's say they introduce to us a new ship that is data running. Yeah, we have data running ships, but what if when they introduce this ship, they actually have the realistic gameplay to describe how it works with that ship? I'm going to be, I'll be more interested in that.
Yeah, exactly. I get it. Okay. Alrighty. You made it through all of that stuff. Isn't that great?
It wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't that bad. No,
that was great. That was great. This stuff excites the crap out of me, man. And I could talk about these panels for a long time.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a great year for this event.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well. Well, listen, hey, we want to say thank you. Coffee Gaming, thank you so much for that resub for 1 month, as always. 24 months in. Been following us for 2 years. Goodness gracious, how do you torture yourself that way? Thank you, Coffee. We appreciate that. Listen, we want to tell you guys, thank you guys so much for coming over. I know Tomato sent some of his folks over with us, and thank you guys for hanging out, supporting him and supporting us. We appreciate you all being here with us today. Real quick, we're gonna go over what we got going on. Tomorrow is our main show on Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we are going to be talking about the escort service, escort service, 100% real ships. You can call anytime, 24/7, 1-800-SOUL-CITIZENS if you want that escort. If you need that escort,
find single ships in your area.
There you go. Find single ships in your area. That's good. I wish you had told me that when I put that together. That would have been great. Oh man, yeah. But listen, if you guys want to find out about our thoughts about what it means to be providing escort service for folks, to be able to get them through the dangers of not only Stanton and Pyro, but any place else we go in the verse, that's going to be our conversation on tomorrow. So hopefully you guys will be able to join us for that. Also, we want to let you know that this is Podset Saturday for us. We partner with several of the other content streamers that are on Saturday. When we leave from here, we will raid and send you over to Mr. Paul Shelley at the Astro Pub, where you guys can hang out and talk with them. Has great conversations over there at the captain's table. And then from there, he sends folks over to the guys at Relay SC in the evening at 9 p.m. And you get basically a whole afternoon and an evening of listening to Star Citizen content. So hopefully you guys will be able to hang out for that and join us. I do want to say a special thank you. I need my mods to send me somebody to raid. That's what I need. Is it going to be Paul? Because last week he wasn't on. So if Paul's not on, I need to know now. Want to say a special thank you to SpaceTomato. Great to have you on. I know it is now 11:50 your time, almost midnight.
Almost midnight.
He'll be able to go hug his wife still, and she won't be too mad at him.
Probably sleeping.
Is she sleeping? All right, she's sleeping.
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, she shouldn't be staying up for me.
As always, man, we're always happy to have you join us, and we really appreciate you. All the cool stuff you share with our folks today, because everybody at Soul Citizens loves you. So thank you for that, man. Thanks for finding.
Of course, thank you for having me on. I always appreciate being in this community.
Yeah, we will definitely have you back, or I'll be back your way, or whatever the case may be. Oh, don't forget. We got several things coming up. Next week, as we mentioned, to CitizenCon, we know everybody's going to be tuned into that. But that following Saturday on the 15th, we are going to be having a virtual bar citizen. And that's always a big one for us. We have folks from CIG usually that come hang out with us. We do giveaways, folks from all over the world. If you live in Germany, the UK, if you live in the US, if you live in South America, Australia, you can tune in. We're out here for about 7 hours on that day. You can get to come in, talk to people from CIG, talk with other people who are in the community. We have a great, great time. So hopefully you guys can join us. That will be at 3 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Eastern till 9 p.m. Eastern. So you'll know that's the time frame. And there's a link that my mods will drop in, hopefully, that will go into chat. You have to register for it. We do it on Zoom. We do that just for security reasons, so that we just don't have people just blowing in. You don't have to use your real name or anything about that, but you do get a link that'll let you come in and get to hang out with us. And we usually have a really great time. Thank you, FC, for putting that in. So hopefully you guys will be able to join us for that. Other than that, we're going to wrap it up. We are going to be doing a raid on Iralia. It looks like I've got, let's do Iralia because we've done Trip before. we're going to send you guys over to Araya because it looks like Paul's not on right now. So when you get over there, if you like Araya, follow, give her a like, let her know that you came over from the Soul Citizens. And as always, we really appreciate you guys being here with us. Space, thanks again. Get some rest. Give the wife and the baby a hug. We appreciate you. And hopefully we'll see you guys real soon. And as always, peace, love, and soul. We'll see you later. Take care.